Hi, my name is James Ramos. I'm here on the show, Renovate with Ramos. I have a great guest, Lauren Klein.
Woohoo!
From Klein Studios. And I am excited to talk to her, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting to the folks out there. She's an interior designer, and a lot of folks with the projects that we do want to understand the difference between what an architect can do versus what an interior designer can do. And I think you're going to be very enlightened by the knowledge that she has and some of the things that are intricate about each individual professional and the pieces that they do. Some overlap, depending on the individual, but how you doing, Lauren?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited. Thank you for
having
on the
me.
show.
Oh, no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for me to talk about the interesting things. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your background first.
Okay, so my name is Lauren Klein, obviously, like you said, and I'm owner and lead designer of Lauren Klein Interiors. There's so much to talk about. Let's see. I was born originally in Brazil, and then I went there for college, and I graduated in my bachelor's for interior design and architecture. Then started working since 2007 as an intern and progressively went, throughout the career and everything. Then back in 2012, I moved to Los Angeles and went for my master's degree in interior architecture in Los Angeles as well. And then now I'm in Tampa.
Awesome.
So I've been working all the way through with high-end interior design projects.
What made you move out of LA?
It was, first of all, it was family and family issues and business that we had to handle. But yeah, and then I decided to stay.
Do you like it here in Tampa?
I do like it here in Tampa.
Bay?
It's very different. Yes, Tampa Bay. Woohoo. I love it. I do love it. There's a big niche. I think it's growing. It's very interesting to see everybody just bringing the styles and updating their homes, bringing, that little modern and fresher take on everything. So it's pretty exciting.
There's a lot of shows in LA that you see, and they're
Yes.
mega millions.
Yes.
But what's interesting about renovating and the process, it's the same. So
Exactly.
if it's a $40 million home, or if it's a $700,000 home or $300,000 home, you're still going to follow
just a
that
room.
same process.
Yeah,
Yep.
a $15,000 room or something like that is just the same process. It just makes everything easier for you to you as a contractor. If the more we design, the more we actually detail, it's just easier for you to do the construction.
So what would you say the biggest difference between an interior designer versus an architect?
Well, they're complementary services. They can both be working on the project at the same time. They do different things. Like, let's say the architect is the person involved directly with the engineer. He will take care of the calculation, the structural calculations, anything that is regarding to roof systems, foundation slabs, the overall shell of a building. That would be mostly the architect. Now, the interior designer does everything inside of a building, right? So I'm mostly focused on residential remodeling, but we can do anything from moving walls to electrical, plumbing, and fittings, and all the specs and the material selection, and so on and so forth. So that's basically the biggest difference between hiring an architect and interior designer. If your project involves structural needs and you need to modify or build from the ground up or everything, then you definitely need an architect.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm thinking about my dad. My dad was a general contractor. I'm a second generation general contractor. And
that's awesome.
When I grew up, he would always, when he's toward his end of his career, he helped my brothers and I. We built a few homes here and there, and he would sub them out and be the GC. And he would always tell me, he's like, you don't need that much detail on plans. And I didn't really understand what he meant. But at the end of the day, when the city or the county municipality looks at your plans, you really don't need, for residential, you don't need that many pages. You don't need that much detail, right? So as a general contractor building for a fee, it's a nuclear disaster when you don't have the plans and the detail that you need. So we go a lot of times above and beyond what the city or the county municipality needs, because you need to understand how the tile layout, right?
Absolutely.
You need to understand where the drawers are or doors on cabinets. You need to understand quite a bit of things, lighting configurations and things. So, moving back, thinking back in the past, my dad he enjoyed that because he managed the project, and every day my wife and I were working in different jobs, but we would come back to the house and he would make all these changes during the day and my wife would be crying.
Oh my God.
It's like, why did you make these changes?
A nightmare.
Dad. And he goes, well, I mean, y'all never selected them. So of course, that was the reason and rhyme for his madness.
And that, honestly, I think might be our biggest, yours especially, but also my biggest nightmare is when the client has picked everything throughout the process, and then you're in middle construction, and then they decide to change something, and then you have to backpedal. Yeah. It's complicated, so we just have to stick with the process, and it always makes things just much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then what I've seen with your work is that a lot of interior designers come in all forms and fashions, and what I mean by that is that they have different tools in their bag. Some can actually draw in CAD and some can actually draw in 3D. Some designers are really good from a personal standpoint, and there could be great personal shoppers and they have a great touch, but they don't have the technical skills to put that in writing, if you will, and have that picture that shows 1,000, words.
And, I think there's also a big difference that it's obviously people don't necessarily need to know or know. There's a difference between an interior designer and a decorator also. Mm-hmm. The interior designer, you go for school, it's basically an interior architecture. You can't do anything like the architect does, which involves the structural parts of it, but you can do all the moving parts that are walls and more technical things inside of a building. The decorator is not basically, forgive me if I'm saying nonsense, but they are not the professionals that do that. They do the furnishings and the decor, the more overall look of making a room.
The items that aren't necessarily glued and screwed.
Exactly, exactly. So there's also that difference, that I feel like people sometimes have a confusion in terms of that, and that's why interior designers have this technical skill. The technical skill set is because we've learned in school how to draft in AutoCAD and so on and so forth. So there's that difference as well, which I think sometimes it's nice to explain as well.
Yeah, and especially in a lot of markets, the general contractor is sort of the second part. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people come to you directly first, to get it going and actually come in and assess their home.
Right.
And you draw up the questions and get the answers correctly, so you can actually understand the scope before you start doing your thing.
Exactly. You need to have a better understanding, what your client's needs are.
Mm-hmm.
You need to ask as many questions as you can to understand what they're looking for and their lifestyle, their desires, and especially their budget, because sometimes there is that miscommunication in terms of that. And then later on, you put this amazing project together that is going to cost $100,000 more than what they had initially. Right. So it's very important for you to just tie up just have as much information as you can, so you can design the project perfectly for them, for their needs.
Yeah, and my interpretation of the difference is that depending on the project, if you're doing an addition, you probably want to start with an architect, so they have the idea as far as they do the basics from a standpoint of getting the shell correct. Because there's a lot of extra
setbacks, there's all these things with the city.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they're going to need to see before. But my intuition is that the best person to start with is an interior designer. I personally own a design build firm. We third party to interior designers like Lauren. And what's great about it is that all those details that I was mentioning that we need to do, we need to have before we actually price a project and start it, can be pulled together with a great interior designer. Not just the selections, but actually the drawings and things. So we have multiple, instances where Lauren actually puts there's 3 documents that we need for permitting, on an interior renovation. The first is an as-built, which is an actual drawing of what is the current look and space of your home, and the second is a demo plan. So the city needs or the county municipality needs to understand what is going to be demoed, and then the third plan is the new plan, which is what it's going to look like when we're done. So that's all that's really needed, and a general contractor can sign off on that as long as we're not moving a lot
important
of
walls like structural things like that. Yeah.
And if you need a structural engineer, but but the extra pieces that you do are really the biggest piece of your solution.
They're the heavy lifting of it.
Which
for
is
sure.
which is the drawings from how your tile layout, going from the flooring or wood all the way up your baseboards, your cabinetry, your counters, your plumbing fixtures, and any ceiling detail.
And even outlet locations, for example, because I've had people come to me, obviously they did not hire an interior designer or an architect, and they're like, okay, I'm done with my remodel and I want to hang the TV right here.
Yeah.
But then, wait a minute, you didn't plan ahead.
Yep.
You didn't place the outlet with the height that you needed it to have, and those things sometimes people don't think through of all those details, and you need to prepare those things before you even close with sheetrock and things like that. So it definitely involves a lot of, intricacy and details and things like that.
That's awesome. Well, you know what they say, one day of good pre-construction and design work will save 15 days of construction.
That's absolutely true.
So we'll leave with that. Thank you, Lauren Klein.
You're welcome.
My name is James Ramos with Ramos Companies, and thank you for listening and watching to Renovate with Ramos.